Hi, in this video I want to tell you something about the importance of case and that you need to consider where is your case in your data. So I'm just kind of summarize the most important things you need to consider. These videos should be not too lengthy, so just a kind of mouse clicks I won't be explaining here, but to just make you aware of some of the issues. What you see on my screen is the Children Happiness project that comes with Atlas when you install it. You find it in the Windows version under Help Quick Tour, and the stage 1 version is the uncoded version, and stage 2 is the coded version. There's also the Mac version of this file that you can download from the website. It's not kind of under the help file or menu yet, but you will find it online. This project has been created in order to be able to demonstrate certain issues like where is your case, but also how to set up a coding system, how to utilize memos and so on. So you can kind of use it as a good practice example if you want to get ideas on how to set up your project. I open the PD manager and we see here a number of documents, 39 in total. And I start with the easy part because we already see this is case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each document is a case. If you import survey data, and this is what these data is, Atlas imports them case-based. So there's nothing you have to think about. Atlas does this for you. If you have other data, you have to kind of think, is that one document the case, or do I have multiple cases in one document, which is the case here with document 3. So everything what I'm highlighting here is one person, a comment on a blog of one person. It's everything between the dotted line. So this is another person. And here is another person. And you already see what I needed to do here if you look at my coding. As these are data from the internet, I don't have like a table where I can look up whether somebody's male or female, or has children or doesn't have children. I need to kind of guess it from what the person writes. So this person has one child, and that child is a daughter. She's female, quite young, and the person who is writing it is the male, so it's the father of that little girl. And in total, this family has one child at this stage. So you see also in terms of coding, I haven't coded father with a young child. Each of these attributes gets a different code, similar to a variable. In a spreadsheet, each variable has, each attribute has its own variable, so like gender, age, having children, yes or no, and so on. So very similar here. And I use gray for these kind of attribute codes, and all these codes that have a color here now, they are actually content of what the person has been saying. So in order to be able to easier to distinguish between the two. But if the case is within the document, then I have to code for that. So let's consider other cases where this might be an issue. If you have done group interviews, you have 8 people discussing certain issues, and then we have 3 males and 5 females. They have different ages, there may be different professional groups, and so on. So you need to handle that via coding each speaker unit, which you actually can do via automatic coding, and I can show that in a different video. If you think of a newspaper analysis, for example, you may have to do some thinking before you actually prepare the documents. Do I want all articles of one particular theme, one particular topic in a document? Well, if you do a newspaper analysis of lots of newspapers, it might be a very long document. Do I want to split it by newspaper? Do I want to split it by a certain day or a week or a month? Or do I want to collect all articles by a particular journalist and put that in a document? So there are actually different choices you can make, what you want to have in a document and what to treat as the case. You can always treat the document as the case, and I will see in a bit how to handle that. But then, of course, if you have articles of the same topic of different dates, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on, and later on you want to analyze by dates what has been published in a weekend edition of the newspaper and what has been published on a Monday or Wednesday, you have to code for that, similarly what I've done here, with like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or for January or February, and so on. If you put all articles together by months, then you have to handle it differently. So I open the PD manager again. Then the document would be whatever here, case 1 would be all articles on about January, and then we would handle that via document groups. So here we have these case-based survey data. If I click on a case, I can see what attributes apply to that particular case. And this person is male, has a high school education, while it's part of the survey data, is divorced, has 1 child, and answered these 2 survey questions with yes. If I click on another case, these highlighted bits, they change, and so we see that the person has some college education, is female, doesn't have children, is single, and answered this survey question, bring happiness with yes. So then we can click on different cases and see the attributes. Actually, these attributes are imported with the survey data, so you don't have to do this yourself. But this is something you could need to do with your newspaper articles, or if you do a literature review. Yeah, you can also then group articles either by certain themes or by journals or by dates, by certain authors and so on. So you also would use document groups for that. So if the document is the case, well then you have to work with document families. Otherwise you have to code if the case is within the document. So why is that important? It's important in terms of the type of analysis that you need to run later on. It doesn't really matter whether you use document groups or whether you need to code for these for these attributes, but it's different tools that you need to use later on. I will just run 2 examples here without telling you the mouse clicks here, just so you can see that I'm using the code-coccurence table if the case is within the document, and I use the codes primary document table if the document is the case. So in terms of analysis, I later on need to know which tools to use based on my decision, what I thought would make sense. Oh, no children yet. I want the have children and the don't have children. I want to compare these 2 groups that I've coded for, and I want to check for reasons for having children. Yeah, and so I get a cross tabulation, and I can also make the columns a bit wider and immediately see some results. It can also check the data behind it and so on. I just want to point out, now we have a cross tabulation of the 2 attributes, have children, don't have children, and a particular content code. This is how I need to deal with my blog-based data. So if I want to query my survey data, because by default they are set up differently, well, I can do have children yes and no. Yeah, so I also have 2, now I have 2 document groups for this. So these are not codes, these are document families, as the Windows version is calling it, document groups in the Mac version. And I go to my reasons for having children codes again. Now I create a report. Atlas is now, the Windows version is actually creating an Excel table. And yeah, just to make it a little bit too big now. So now you see has children, no and yes, and I can relate it to the various content codes, and I see how it's shaping up, and I have to do something else in order now to actually get the data behind it. That's I do that in the query tool with the scope option. Yeah, I don't want to run this now through. I just want to point out this is the scope button where you then actually relate a code-based query to your document groups again. So just keep this in mind, the scope, very important button here in the query tool. So there will be some other tutorials where I run through analysis examples, but just to kind of show you the importance of thinking about where's your case when you set up your project and what kind of consequences that have you for your analysis. And if you have things like literature review or newspaper analysis, think about what makes sense. Does it make sense to have lots and lots of documents? Then you can work with document groups. Or does it make sense to have maybe longer documents that are about 10 pages and not like half-page documents? But then you need to code for each case within it. So what is easier to handle? What's quicker to do? And then you have to choose the analysis options in the end that are appropriate.